Right, welcome back to section 2 of this lesson, and quickly I want to introduce you to the concept of fields. What is a field? Well, generally a field is a region in space where an object will experience a force. All right? Like now, in terms of us being here on Earth and every other object on Earth, the Earth being an object creates a field around itself. That field is called a gravitational field. Every other object also creates that field. As a person, where you are now, you are creating a field. You've got a field around you. You have created a gravitational field around you where any other object that will come into that field will begin to experience a force due to this gravitational field. So the Earth creates that field. Of course, the field depends on the mass of the object. The Earth being a huge object, it creates a huge field, a huge gravitational field around itself. So within this field, every object is going to experience a force. You yourself there, you are experiencing a force that actually pulls you towards the Earth, because the Earth, being a massive object, has got a bigger field and a bigger force of attraction called the gravitational force. All right. Now, when any object is within that field, it's going to experience a force. Now, the force exists between objects. It doesn't matter how small an object is and how big an object is. In other words, this gravitational force we're talking about already exists between you and the Earth. You are attracting the Earth with some force, and the Earth is also attracting you with some force, and that is called the gravitational force. Right, let's now have a look at this diagram here. Now, here I've got two objects, M1 and M2. I tried to draw them. I wanted them to look like circles, but I couldn't get them right. But anyway, that's what I have. And now, these two objects here, M1 and M2, are creating a gravitational field around themselves. Okay? And at the distance where they are now, they are within the field of each other, and therefore each one of them experiences a force. So there is a force that they are experiencing, these two objects, due to the field, due to being in the field of each other. Okay, gravitational field. Now, this force here, how can we find the magnitude or the size of this force that the two objects they are actually experiencing? We know that the force, the nature of the force that is there, is an attractive force. Okay, so they actually attract each other. Right. Now, one thing we need to know is that this force depends on the masses of the two objects. So the product of the two masses will tell us how big that force is going to be, because this force depends on them. It is directly proportional to M1 and M2 multiplied together, or the product of M1 and M2. The same force is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between between the centers of the two objects. So you would see the red line here. I tried to draw it in such a way that it passes through the centers of the two objects, so that when I get my R here, it is exactly the distance between the two centers of the two objects. So that is what I have. Now, if we put these two together, okay, so F depends on the masses of the two objects. F depends on the distance between the centers of the two objects. When we put these proportionality expressions together, we have this. We have F being proportional to M1 times M2 divided by R squared. Okay? Now, if we are to remove the proportionality sign, we will then have to introduce a constant. And that constant in this case is called the constant, the universal constant of gravity. We call it G. So G m1 m2 divided by the square of the distance between the two objects. Okay, so that's how we can determine the force, the magnitude of the force between those two objects. And of course, the gravitational force. Now, what is the value of G? We should be knowing, or we should know what this G is. G is 6.67 by 10 to the power minus 11. Okay, G is that one. Now, this force is a very specific force. It's the force due to gravity. Okay, therefore, we can put G there to tell us we're talking about the force due to gravity. Now, the force with which the earth attracts you is the force of gravity. We, of course, call it the weight. Right, that's it about the force of gravity. And now let's see each other in the next section of the lesson.